I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one of the debutants in the Grand Slam of darts this weekend, Luke Woodhouse. Thanks for the time, Luke. How you doing?
Hi, Alex. Yeah. Cheers for having me on. I'm doing really good. Yeah, really good.
Glad to hear. Well, let's start first with the Grand Slam. You were one of 8 players to win through Sunday's tour card holder qualifier, and for you it is going to be a first appearance in the Grand Slam. So how excited are you to be heading to Wolverhampton?
Oh, really excited. I mean, it's one of those events, obviously, I've watched for, since I've started watching darts, really. And I went a few years back when Wayne Jones qualified. I went as a guest and watched when it was at the Civic. And it's just a really, it's a special event. And obviously, it's a different event with the group stages. And it's going to give me an opportunity for another sort of 3 games on telly. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and it's a sort of a local tournament for me. It's only about 40 minutes away from me, the Wolverhampton. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing in it.
Well, we'll come back to the Grand Slam later, but it's been a little while since we last had you on the show, way back in June 2019 after you made your first quarter-final on the Pro Tour, and that helped you qualify for the Players' Championship Finals, the World Championship for the first time. What did it mean to you to finish that year making your debuts in those 2 events?
Yeah, well, as soon as I got my tour card, it was sort of like the 2 I sort of looked at was the Players' Championship and the Worlds, really, and it was always about trying to make the World Championship to me. So yeah, to do it was fantastic. Yeah, and obviously after that, it was just always about trying to make it back there every year, and it's something I've succeeded at. So yeah, to have made them in sort of after the last time I spoke, it was brilliant. Yeah.
And we should mention that first Players' Championship Finals appearance in 2019. You played the defending champion Daryl Gurney on the main stage in Minehead, come from behind to win it 6-5 in that decider, taking out that 71 with Daryl waiting on tops. How special was that moment?
Yeah, like I say, my first game on the telly, all I wanted to do was just give a good account of myself, really, and just show us obviously how strong my game was. And so yeah, to come off with the win was brilliant. And like I say, taking out the 71, and all I kept thinking was the treble 13 and just make sure I put them close. And the last one went in, and I had a few family members and friends and stuff down watching as well. So yeah, it was really special especially my debut, like my telly debut, to win my first game. Yeah, it was brilliant.
And it was not long before you were back on the big stage, this time at Ali Pali, where you played a legend, Paul Lim. You won 3-0 with a 96 average. Fair to say your World Championship debut couldn't have gone much better.
No, exactly. To be honest, because I'd obviously done okay at the Players' Champs, I was sort of quietly confident. I knew sort of Paul's capabilities, and obviously he'd beaten like Mark Webster and stuff. I'm not sure it was the year before or 2 years before that. And obviously he was a legend of the game, or still is a legend of the game. But I just thought if I go up there and play well, then I was going to take some beating. So yeah, I mean, I was extremely happy with the way I played against Paul that year. So it put me in good stead moving forward.
Yeah, it definitely did. That was on the Saturday. Then the next day, on the Sunday, you knock out Michael Smith, the 4th seed, 3-1 with a 97 average. What are your memories of that night?
Because it was the day after. It was sort of, I think it done me a favour not having sort of too much time to go away and sort of think about things. Really, it was sort of straight back into the mix, and straight back sort of in the practice room, and you sort of just went again the next day. I can also remember sort of having a little bit of a sort of shadow over my head, thinking that I'd have to have probably won that game to keep my tour card at the time. But then obviously I went on to win, so it was sort of, my tour card was safe. But yeah, to beat someone like the stature of Michael Smith and obviously get through it was sort of a perfect debut year at the World Championships.
Well, the run ends to Dimitri van den Berg in the next round, and not long after that, in 2020, the world shuts down with the pandemic. What were those first few months with no darts like for you, having spent, I guess, the last 5 or 6 years travelling around and playing? Yeah,
it was tough, but then again, it was sort of tough for everyone, wasn't it? But for me, I felt it sort of stood in my momentum a little bit. I think I'd made, can't remember, I'd made a quarter final in the Pro Tours, the very last Pro Tours before we went into lockdown, and I felt like I was playing quite well. And obviously we'll never know whether I'd have carried on that momentum or whatever. But yeah, I felt it stopped my momentum a little bit, as in my progression of playing well. And obviously when we went into lockdown, no one really knew how long we were going to be playing darts or whatever. So I didn't pick up my darts for, I can't remember, a couple of months until we had the sort of the go ahead with the home tour, and I think the home tour was brilliant for everyone. It sort of made everyone pick up their darts again and practice, and give the players something to sort of aim for and practice for.
Yeah, we'll come on to this year in a second, but I just wanted to touch on that home tour as well, because that's where you got the nickname Mr. Kitchen 9-dart from Darius Slavonauskas after throwing that 9-darter in your kitchen during that event. What's it like to have probably the most famous 9-dart finish at home on your resume?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, it was all, like I say again, it was all because it was at home, and I've spoken about it before. Because it was at home, obviously it's amazing in the 9-darter in any sort of match, but because it was at home, it didn't really feel that sort of big a deal. And then sort of the day after, I think I had to do 5 or 6 different interviews with different people, and then I had to the Washington Post from America and things like that. And then it sort of dawned that darts was probably the only sort of live sport at the time, so I think there was more people watching than we sort of give credit at the time, because obviously we're just playing at home with a sort of makeshift stream on our phone or whatever. I don't think players really sort of took in how sort of not it wasn't huge, but like I said, it was the only live sport on. I think it was, like I say, there was more eyes on it than we gave credit for.
When the tour did come back, you made Minehead and Ali Pali again that year, last year as well. Coming into this year, 2022, what were the main targets that you'd set for yourself this season? The first season, I guess, back with that full calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably the same as most players that I've made Minehead and I've made the World again, and I'd like to have sort of made another major, whether it be the match play or the Grand Prix or one like that, but it's so tough, and then you lose that bit of momentum, and then players gaining you, and then you're all of a sudden finding yourself like way back on the order of merits to get in these events. And for me, it was always trying to make Minehead, trying to make the Worlds again, and I've done one out of the two. I'm disappointed not to make Minehead. I've had a bit of a disappointing year on the Players Championship sort of side, but I've had an okay year on the European Tour this year, so sort of swings and roundabouts, but. Yeah, like my main thing was just the World Championships is the one for me, really. If you can make that, then have a big run in that, it can change your life. So that was always the main goal.
Well, when we last spoke, you'd said that you'd been with your management, Darting Promotions, for I think 5 or 6 years. So that partnership's still going strong now for the best part of 10 years. Michael Smith now part of the team as well. What is it about the Darting Promotions team that's kept that relationship going for all these years?
Mark's just... He's brilliant. He allows us to be able to just go and do our own thing. There's no sort of stipulations to us having to sort of all travel together or sit at the same table. We've all sort of got our own routines, and yeah, he just sort of lets us get on. We just worry about turning up and playing darts, and he sorts it all out, and he's been brilliant. And yeah, I can't thank him enough. Or without him, 100% wouldn't have been able to. Especially through sort of lockdown and stuff like that, I wouldn't have been able to sort of like progress how I have done. So yeah, it's brilliant. Like I can't thank Mark enough and Darting Promotions.
And we saw during the last World Championship one of your stablemates, Callum Ridds, make the quarterfinals. You were supporting him on social media as well. How tight knit is the group that you've got there as well?
Yeah, very tight knit. I mean, we all got on really well. Obviously, Michael's been on tour a lot more than us, so he sort of does his own thing with his own time. But me and Cal, we've roomed together since he's been on tour, and we go and play snooker and pool together and go out for meals and stuff together. So yeah, it's very tight knit, and yeah, to see him have that run last year at the Worlds is brilliant. And I mean, at one point I thought he looked like he was gonna go all the way. So it was exciting, and I'm so glad for him that he had that run and shown his capability, really, and showed the world how good he can be.
Definitely. Well, we say it on the show, a lot of the players nowadays, they hand their social media over to management to post for them, but you're someone who still runs your accounts. We always get that honest opinion, how you're feeling after events. And after the UK Open this year, you said it was the lowest that you'd felt for a while. Can you go into why that was?
Yeah, I mean, I still do my own sort of social medias, and I've got to sometimes be a little bit not get involved with certain people on there and whatever. But yeah, I mean, after the UK, but I just felt it wasn't when I'd put a statement out, and it wasn't really anything sort of like in my life that was going on. I was really struggling getting my head around whether it was because we were all of a sudden chucked back into tournament after having 2 years of. I was just really struggling to get my head around travelling and being away and getting my head right for tournaments. But I think gradually as the years gone on, I've sort of got myself into better routines of practice and how I've sort of handled each tournament then. But yeah, it wasn't anything really significant. It was just sort of how I was handling myself around tournament playing. I weren't really dealing with, like, obviously everyone loses. I weren't dealing with the losses very well, and I was struggling to get myself sort of motivated to get myself in the right frame to play. But like I said, as the years gone on, I've seemed to have got a lot more settled, and I feel like I'm sort of back to where I was.
Good to hear. Well, you came close to qualifying for the European Championship this year. You had that 109 average on the Euro Tour this year as well. And after the last Pro Tours, you just missed out on the Players' Championship finals. But as you say, you did qualify for Ali Pali. But how are you feeling going into the Grand Slam qualifier on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good. I mean, I've changed my sort of practice routine up a little bit. I've been going over and having a practice with my brother and stuff, and going over and practicing with different people, and I'm practicing really well. And I think like the weekend just gone is probably as consistent as I've played in a long time. So yeah, I'm full of confidence going into the Grand Slam, and if I can sort of repeat a couple of performances from the weekend, and I think I can hopefully give a really good account of myself and maybe shock a few people.
Well, looking at your run on Sunday, you beat Darius Labanauskas, Florian Hempel, and 5-3, and then 4-2 down to Danny Baggish. You come back and win that one 5-4 with the 107 average. At what point are you starting to think it could be a day?
Probably after that Danny Baggish game, knowing I had one more game to win. You sort of start thinking then, like you say, I think when it's a qualifying game, the last game, I think both players sort of look at it as a 50-50 game, and you're just saying to yourself, if you can keep your head and keep your composure now for one more game, then you just never know. And obviously I took my chances and I come through the qualifier. So, but yeah, I think after the Danny Baggish game, I really sort of believed that I could, especially after the 107 average as well, and I think Danny had 101 or 102, so I knew I'd played well to beat him. Yeah, then after that, I thought I couldn't see why I wasn't able to win the next game and qualify.
Well, looking at that final round then against Gabriel Clemens, you said it was probably a 50-50 in that final game, but 3-0 down, it probably wasn't a 50-50, but you win 5 legs in a row to win it 5-3. What was that moment like when you did complete that comeback and you had got that spot in the Grand Slam?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when the winning double went in, it was just relief, and obviously being 3-0 down, I couldn't believe it, but I started off very slow, and after the way I'd played the previous 2 games, I was not in disbelief, but sort of like a bit annoyed with myself that I'd sort of gone 3-0 down in such a obviously massive game, and I just tried to keep as composed as possible, and thought if you get a chance, you're gonna have to take it, and luckily I did, and I think I had an important double to go 4-3 up with one in hand, and then broke off the last leg with a 180, which obviously when it's your darts and you go for a 180, it's massive. So to come through that game, and I was just sort of happy that I managed to show a bit of composure and keep it together, rather than sometimes the pressure gets to you and you can sort of miss a few darts at doubles, and the game can get away from you. So it was nice to come through it.
Well, let's take a look at the draw before we let you go, and it was released only a few hours ago. You're in Group G with Michael van Gerwen, Ross Smith and Nathan Rafferty. What was your reaction when you saw the draw?
Yeah, I mean, I never expect I don't think there's any draws that you'd think, it's a really, really nice draw and whatever. But yeah, it's going to be amazing to play Michael and Ross, and obviously Ross being the recent European champion, and Michael's obviously won countless majors. It's going to be brilliant to play them. So, and then obviously Nathan's such a good player as well. I'm just, you know what I mean, I've got 3 games to go out and show what I'm capable of, and I'm sort of on a free roll really to get through the qualifier and make my debut. I've sort of not really got anything to lose, so if I can go out and play with no pressure and show what I'm capable of, then if I can get through the group, then that's brilliant.
And lastly, away from the darts, we know you're a Manchester United fan when it comes to the football. Probably not the best week to mention it after the game on Sunday, but how do you see the season playing out for United after the World Cup?
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. It's going to be a long rebuilding process for us, I think. I mean, we've done very, very well this season. We've obviously we won a few games in a row, and then the loss to Villa I think was a little bit of a shock, but not a shock in the fact that we do every so often United get beat easy. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see us bring in someone that can score a few more goals. We don't score too many, but yeah, I think it's going to take 2 or 3 years really to rebuild and get anywhere close to sort of your Man Cities and Liverpools, and I hope they just give Erik ten Hag a bit more time than they have previous managers.
Well, back to you, and you have got that debut in the Grand Slam to look forward to this weekend. Congratulations on getting through the qualifier. Wish you all the best for the Grand Slam and what else is to come this year as well.
Cheers, Alex. Thanks very much for having me on.